So hi, welcome. My name is Meckfessel, and I'm an engineering director at Google. I'm responsible for the developer tooling and infrastructure for our cloud platform and for Google engineers.
And my name is Tomas Isdal. I'm a software engineer, and I'm the tech lead for managed VMs.
So we're really excited to be here today to talk to you about DevOps at the speed of Google. Google builds some of the world's largest applications and services. Google.com, Gmail, YouTube. And the reason our developers are able to work efficiently to build and run these services is because we have a great set of tools. We've spent the last 15 years building and developing these tools, and we're so happy to be able to offer them to you. Today we're going to talk through what Google offers you, developers, for getting code out the door to your users. But what do we mean by DevOps? You all probably have a somewhat different definition. DevOps is a way of bringing software developers and operations together. And I think the key here is integration. Learning and improving your code by bringing dev, writing your code, and ops, running your service and your code in the cloud closer together. Automate away the parts of ops you don't need to worry about. The goal should be faster development, faster deployment, and ultimately more predictable operations. So I've worked on a bunch of projects, experimental projects, as well as massive legacy systems. Some with small communities and others with hundreds of millions of users. And it can be so energizing, right, and invigorating to work on these apps. But it can also be frustrating and exhausting. We want to build cool features, but we end up spending a huge amount of overhead time. Overhead on release and deployment or on operational work just to keep things running. And just to tell a story here, but I remember sleeping with my pager in my hand under my pillow for months at a time. And I still have nightmares of waking up in the middle of the night with that buzzing in my hand of some failure I needed to fix. So at Google, we think the cloud is about much more than just giving you raw VMs and storage. We can offer you much more than that. You deserve to have a platform that can automate away the time-consuming tasks that you don't need to worry about. To just get rid of repetitive DevOps tasks so that we free up your time to work on new features, apps, or new business ideas. So today we're going to show you some of the first steps that we're taking and the direction we're heading. We're going to focus and start when you already have a working app, and we're going to show you how to track down performance issues with your app, test it, deploy it, how you make sure that it stays running smoothly.
So we announced managed virtual machines at the Google Live event in March this year. With managed VMs, we combine the flexibility of Google Compute Engine, our infrastructure as a service offering, with the ease of use and reliability of App Engine, our platform as a service offering. If you're an existing App Engine customer today, you only need to change one line in a configuration file to take advantage of everything managed VMs has to offer. For this session, we'll use managed VMs to power all our demos. When you run your app on managed VMs, we set everything up automatically, so you get access to version deployments, software updates, automatic health checking. If a VM goes bad, we try to heal it by basically kicking it and restarting it. We do load balancing, scaling, logging analysis. We hook up debugging tools. We do performance tracking, and so on. So can we switch to the demo, please? Oh, and, well, best of all, of course, let's not forget this. Google has a really good site reliability team spread out all over the world. So whenever there's a power outage, network cut, hurricanes, or anything else impacting the data center where your app is serving, you can trust us that someone from Google is awake and he's on track to fix it already, which means that we carry the pagers and you don't have to. Can we switch to demo? So having confidence that your app is running is just the start, right? Another another key part of DevOps is understanding how your app is performing. So a benefit of managed VMs is that we hook up the infrastructure you need to answer questions like, how's the performance of my app right now? So here, I have the, hang on, let me, here, I have loaded the Walkshare demo app. You might have recognized this from the previous session and from the keynote. So we got a bug report that says that as you load a lot of comments, this app is starting to get really slow. So I'm going to jump into a debug UI here that we implemented that can reproduce this issue. So to jump in to really reproduce the problem, we heard that whenever there's more than 5,000 comments, things get really slow. So I'm going to load here, and then we're going to see if we can reproduce it here live as well. So OK, there it loaded. But I could probably count to like 5, 1, 2, 3. OK, so at least a 3-second latency just to load the next 50 comments in our app. So this is obviously not what we want as we launch this app to customers. So a new feature in cloud that we've been working on for some time is cloud tracing. This allows you to go in and look to see which RPCs your app is making. Let's load up the Cloud Trace UI here and dive in to see what's going on. So here's a list in the new Cloud Console that shows us the RPCs that are made by this app. So we see here we just had a request to the comment admin page running at 5,000, fetching comment 5,100 and forward. As we dig in here, we see here that, OK, the entire response took 2.3 seconds, so really slow. We spent some time in data store run query, but we also spent a lot of time just fetching additional data store results. So my suspicion here is that instead of fetching just the 50 comments that we care about, we actually fetch 5,000 comments, and then we fetch the 50 comments we care about. Clearly not good. So I'm going to load our source code viewer. This viewer is hooked up to the Git repository that's serving your app. So this is basically allowing me to browse the prod code we have right now. Well, I see here, sudo Isdal, do not use offset, it is slow. OK. So this means that when I did an offset query, if I had read the documentation, I would have known that it's actually fetching everything up to the offset I'm looking for. Also in the documentation, it says that query cursors is the way to go. So I'm going to just delete this one, delete the code here, and I'm going to switch to this conveniently placed cursor implementation right below. And then commit it, so switch from set to query. As I hit commit here, we have hooks that notifies our build, test, and deploy pipeline that a change was made. And this is going to trigger first the compilation of all our source code. This is Java, so we need to compile it. Then it's going to trigger all our unit tests. And if everything is green, it will push it to our staging environment. So let's see how it's doing. As we load this page, we see that, well, now you guys, OK, here we go. We see that the deployment is in progress, but our prod app is still using the old version. So we don't have to worry about pushing things to prod by accident. So can we switch back to slides, please?
All right. So pretty cool stuff. We're going to talk a little bit about continuous delivery in a second, but I wanted to share some numbers behind the scale of Google's internal developer tooling and infrastructure. So each and every day, Google engineers will execute 800,000 builds, generating over 2 petabytes of build output, over 100 million test cases run, with over 30,000 change lists, each and every day. Now, those numbers may seem large, but that's the type of scale that we want to deliver to you as part of your DevOps experience. So let's talk a little bit about the importance of continuous delivery. So understanding application performance, it's important, but it's just one part of the development lifecycle. The lifecycle starts with an idea, right? A feature. And then that turns into code. It gets tested, and then finally shipped. And reliability of delivery is important. You want to know for sure that the changes you're pushing are not going to break production. You don't want to just push and hope, just pray that everything's going to be okay. And you certainly don't want to be that, waking up in the middle of the night with that pager alert. So getting to live faster, it makes you happy, right? It enables us to innovate faster. Whether you're, working on a feature or fixing a simple bug, you want to see that change live in minutes, right? Not hours or days. And this allows you to update your application incrementally, right? With faster deployment, you have more frequent and smaller releases. So, right, you're updating your application incrementally so that you know if something goes wrong, it's easier for you to trace back to the issue and potentially roll back. So I know nobody likes it when changes take forever to get to production. But I think what's even worse is not knowing where your changes are. So deployments, we believe they should be visible and predictable. You shouldn't have to have a crystal ball or have to chase down a release manager or someone else on your team to know which bits are where. So from that Git commit that we made earlier, we triggered the push to deploy pipeline. As soon as we detect that new commit, we triggered a Jenkins-based job to build, test, and deploy the application. So Jenkins is an open source framework that provides a very easy-to-use continuous integration system. It enables developers to update their projects and attain a fresh build. And that's what we're using behind the scenes for the push-to-deploy workflow. So these changes should already be deployed in our staging environment. But now we want to promote those changes from staging into production so that our end users can benefit from this. And this really highlights the idea of DevOps, right? We're writing code, we see there's an issue, we track it down using tracing, we make the fix, we commit it again, we verify that it's in staging, and then we're ready to move it on to production. So let's take a look at our release pipeline. Can we switch to demo, please? All right. So I'm going to peek back and forth here. So you can see here that our change was uploaded successfully. And I think that the multi-stage release pipeline work, this enables us to bring together multiple projects and multiple environments. And the whole goal here is to make it easy for you, right, to bring those pieces together, to get your code out to your users with a push of your code or a click of a button. So here we can see it happened successfully, but let's actually go check to make sure that the fix that we committed worked as we expect. So I'm going to go back and I'm going to look at list comments. I'm going to click more. Seems pretty fast, right? Okay, well, let's go look at the trace to be sure. Nope. All right, it's taking a second here. Reload it. Okay, seems like it's got updated. Demo gods in our favor, please.
At least everyone knows it's live, right?
Oh, there we go. There we go. So yeah, you can see here that the change is taking significantly less time. So that makes me feel better about pushing out to production. So now I'm going to go back to the release pipelines page in our dev console, and I'm just going to click promote. And that's it. In the background, we're going to start up another Jenkins-based job to build, test, and deploy our app to production so that our users can see the change. And the push will only happen if the build and test, if the results are all green. So switch back to the prezo, please.
So testing is important, but it's only important if you actually run in production what you tested earlier, which is why we're so excited to talk about the new Docker support for managed VMs. We had a full session about Docker and containers yesterday, and if you Google search for containerizing the cloud, it should be the first hit, and you can watch the recording of it. So a Docker image is a bundle that contains your application binaries, but it also contains all the dependencies of your application. This could be any static files you depend on, any operating system libraries you depend on, or maybe even the entire operating system you depend on. So all these files are shipped around as a bundle, which gives you confidence that whatever you run on your laptop is the same as you run in prod. So from a DevOps perspective, this is great because it gives us a testable bundle that's portable between environments. We can develop on our laptop for quick iteration. We can push it to staging. We know it's exactly the same bits as we test on our laptop. We run a big suite of tests on it in staging, and then when it's all green, we can choose to push to prod. And again, it's the entire environment of your app. So the build, test, deploy pipeline you saw here, it is a Jenkins build. It is compiling your source, but the actual build artifact it's producing is a Docker image. So here we bundle in your app, your libraries, whatever other dependencies you had, together with a super minimal Linux distribution, well, by default, if that's what you want to run. And we put this into Google Cloud Storage so that it's accessible from all the VMs reliably and quickly as the VMs boot up. So putting all this together makes managed VMs a really great way to package and run your Docker containers. So why containers then? Well, at Google, we're super excited about the increased external popularity of Docker containers. So internally, we're huge container users. We have been using containers since 2006. And we contributed C groups back to Linux kernel. We're continuously contributing our improvements, both upstream into the Linux kernel and into Docker Inc. Today, at Google, in production, we start over 2 billion containers per week. And we're really excited to take our experience with running containers and contribute that to the customers of Google Cloud Platform. So can we switch back to the demo, please? Well, we just pushed the fix to production. Now, let's go back and see if we actually improved performance. So in production, we could do the same small test as we just did in staging by checking individual RPCs and seeing how things are going. However, what you actually care about is whether this change improved performance or made things worse for our users. So with cloud tracing, we allow you to generate reports where you slice and dice your RPC data to figure out whether latency increased, decreased, whether error rates went up, and so on. So since we just pushed to production, I'm going to use data from earlier this week, since we don't really have any real production data just yet. So this is data from the same fix that I did a couple of days ago. So we see here, as we look at the latency profile of these RPCs, we see that the orange line is the new version. The median latency went down to 43 milliseconds. The resolution is so low here, so I have to scroll all the way over to the right to see the tail latency of the old implementation. But you see here, previously, the old implementation was running out in up to 4-second request response time, so not very good. And as you debug these tail latencies, it's really useful to be able to dig in deeper to figure out, okay, I see this request was really slow. So we allow you to go and look at representative traces in a given latency percentile. So I'm going to go in here, and I'm going to look at the old implementation, say the 90th percentile latency, and see what could go wrong here. And again, we see the step method with the data store calls just keep on getting repeated. Here, we fetched 8,150 comments before we got the 50 comments we were interested in. So this gives you the ability to really dig into your changes and make sure that whatever you push to production is actually improving what your users see. Can we switch back to slides?
Great. So I'm going to talk a little bit about testing. So server-side and web ops are just part of the story, right? Most services have mobile components too. And the mobile landscape is diverse, and it's changing all the time. And for developers, this presents us with great opportunities, but also significant challenges. So for example, 6 different Android OS versions each have a market share of over 10%. And other popular Android devices cover an even bigger span of screen sizes and pixel densities. So as a developer, we have to make sure that the apps we're building will work on our users' devices. And releasing with confidence in this type of environment that's changing so quickly, it demands testing across an extensive matrix of devices, API levels, and even languages. So let's see how the power and scale of Google can make matrix testing fast and easy. So can you switch back to demo, please? Go on the other side. OK. So I'm developing a new feature for the WalkShare app that we've been talking about. And I wrote some, and I'm doing that in Android Studio. And I wrote some tests using the Espresso framework. So I've tested my application against a local emulator, but now I want to test it against some of the most popular configurations for my customers. And I start running the tests in the usual way, but in addition to local devices and emulators, I see I have this new option here, Run Tests in Google Cloud. And I'm going to select that. And note in this dialog box here, you can see that the tests are going to run in my WalkShare Google Cloud project. So let's go in here. OK, so here I can pick the configurations I want to test against. And I have an existing set of matrix configurations already defined. You can see them here. I have some smoke tests. These are basic tests that I run with every change. I have some release tests. These are more extensive tests that I run with every release. And then I have some sample tests. Google will even use Play Store statistics to come up with a set of configurations based on the statistics that they've found. So I also have an option here of some configurations that will cover the most of my user community. And if I wanted to, I could even select all of the available test configurations to run. And it looks like there's over 1,700 here. But what I want to do is I want to dig in on the smoke tests. So I'm going to pick my device here. I'm going to pick Nexus 5. And I'm going to pick the platform. I'm going to pick API 18 and 19, or Jelly Bean and KitKat. I'm going to pick the locale, English and German. And I'm going to pick the orientation, which is portrait. So I can see here that my tests will run, these 4 configurations will cover 20% of my current users. So I also have this option down here to run tests on physical devices. And as you heard yesterday, we're very excited to welcome App Purify to Google. App Purify has a great interface to enable developers to test their apps against physical devices. And the interface is great. It provides very actionable feedback so that you can fix things that are wrong with your mobile app. App Purify shares Google's passion about making great mobile applications across both Android and iOS. So I can't talk about the specifics right now, but I can say that we do have plans to offer App Purify's platform as a cross-platform service for all of our developers. So now that I picked my configurations, I'm just going to hit OK, and I'm going to hit OK again. And we can see here that Android Studio is building my application and running all of my tests. And it's going to upload them to a Google Cloud storage bucket. This is so it's not coming up quite yet, but from there, Google's going to run all of my requested tests in parallel. And as the tests finish, the results are going to stream back to the results viewer so that I know exactly what's going on. And as the tests complete, I can go dig in and look at the details. So you can see here that those 4 test configurations are still running. So we're going to do a little Julia Child since they take a couple minutes, and we're going to switch over to the same configurations, but the tests have already completed. And it's interesting. Here I can see in the hierarchy the different API levels, and I can see that I have a test that's failed, and it's on API level 18, or Jelly Bean. So from here, I can actually go look at the code. Oh, you can see. I had a check in here to test for whether or not we're running KitKat and to throw an exception. So this is an example of being able to really dig in and find issues that you need to fix. Failure on particular APIs, it's a pretty common problem. But sometimes test assertions, they don't find all the issues that we need to know about. So with a couple of additional lines of code, my espresso test will take screenshots. Google will capture those screenshots and stream them back to me so I can look for issues that may exist in the UI that will affect my user's experience of the app. So I'm going to pick on this test that completed, and I'm going to go take a look, and I'm going to do some comparisons between my configuration. So remember, I picked English and German, kind of like this morning. Wanted to have US win. OK. So I'm going to scroll through these now. And you can see the comparison here. So OK, this is the second screenshot comparison. I can see it looks like there's a cutoff of the translation here. So that might be an issue. But let me, OK, that looks pretty good. Looks pretty good. All right, here's another issue. Right? It's not lining up correctly. So, yeah, so I probably want to fix that. So neither one of these issues, would have been triggered by a test failure, but it's pretty convenient, pretty easy for me to be able to check for these types of issues and be able to fix them so that my users have the best experience. We think you should be able to run matrix testing whenever you want, right? Not with release. And it should all happen in parallel, and it should be easy, and you shouldn't have to leave your IDE to do it. So we covered a lot in this testing section. You saw how we were able to run Android tests across multiple devices, OS versions, API levels, languages, all in parallel. And you also saw how you could look at the results. You could drill into the actual code to find out what was going wrong. So matrix testing with Google Cloud can help you develop and release quickly and confidently. And no matter which device your users are using, you'll be able to fix the issues and push those releases out to production. So can we switch back to the presentation, please? So we've covered a lot of content in this session, so I just wanted to quickly recap. We started out with managed VMs, Google's way of offering the benefit of platform as a service with the full power of virtual machines. Then we showed our new ability to capture trace application traffic, and then use that to identify performance issues. But DevOps wouldn't be complete without deployment. We've built upon the push-to-deploy concept and are expanding it to include multi-stage release pipelines. So you can know which code is where, and you can promote easily between your environments. And then finally, we showed cloud testing, an easy way to offer matrix testing for your build, test, and deploy cycle. So Google's working hard to deliver a full-featured DevOps stack for you. And the part that I'm most excited about is that we're just getting started. So thanks so much for coming today. Thanks for coming to I/O. We'd love to hear your feedback. We have a sign-up page there for managed VMs. And we also have this offer in terms of getting started on our cloud platform. We're happy to take some questions for a couple minutes if you'd like. And thanks again for coming. Come over here. Oh, and please use the microphones if you're going to ask questions.
Other slide.
What's the other slide? Oh, yeah, thanks. All right.
Okay.
Thanks. Oh, okay. You're in the back.
Big room.
Give you time to walk. Sorry about that.
All right. Hello.
Hi.
So the question is, great stuff. So we've been seeing a lot of stuff on wearable and TV. So is there anything you can share in terms of where there's automation around testing for that stuff in the future, where that's going?
Not at this time.
Damn.
I don't know.
Okay.
We could try and hunt down the answer for you, but I can't tell you. Thanks for asking.
Hi. Everything looks really cool. So on the stuff with Android testing, is there just going to be support for Espresso's testing library to run with matrix testing, or are you going to support like Roboelectric, Robotium, all these other testing frameworks as well?
So yeah, we do want to support other testing frameworks. I think our philosophy is that we want to meet engineers, right? Meet developers where they are, and so decisions around using Jenkins, for example, to write plugins to support the build and test and deploy cycle is, that's just one example, but I just used it as an example today because that was what we did for the demo, but we do want to support other types of testing frameworks. Yeah.
Cool. Thank you.
Thanks.
Great stuff. What actually did the screen capturing? Is that an API call within the test, or was that done by the CI job?
I think that was done by the actual test.
Okay, because we actually use Espresso over at Twitter, and I don't believe there is an API for taking screenshots, at least a stock API that comes with Espresso, so I was just curious about that.
So yeah, we've been doing this, we've been doing it internally at Google, and if you stay after, I'll get you connected with the folks on the team that have done it.
Great, thank you.
Cool.
Hello.
Hi.
As far as I know, you use Jenkins to do the testing before deploying and stuff.
Sure.
Is it possible to get access to the UI of the Jenkins, for example, to see reporting and stuff?
Yeah, that's a good question. We've written you saw the wrapper around it, because we wanted to make it as easy as possible for you to interact with the UI. But yeah, there is, well, if you can stay after, we could talk about it. But part of what we were trying to do with that is just, to make it simpler and easy to use. Have you spent a lot of time using the Jenkins UI?
Yeah, I've got an own Jenkins to do the reporting stuff, so
yeah,
it would be great to have it in just
there. Yeah, we should talk about that after. But yeah, there's some challenges with the Jenkins UI. We've talked with the folks, Kasuke and such about. I think there's some great collaborations we can do there around making improvements to it. But yeah, it's a good question.
I will come by afterwards.
Yeah, thanks.
Hi. So most of the stuff you have demonstrated today started with the build. Do you guys have any plans to integrate code review tools like what internally Google uses, for example?
Right? Where are you from?
I used to work for Google. So.
Okay, there you go.
And then the second thing is like dashboards, like TAP.
Yeah.
Like I ran tests like, okay, this test started actually failing with this commit essentially.
Yeah.
I want to know the history of the test essentially.
So you have the inside scoop, right?
But
so, yeah,
those things naturally fit as like the next steps.
Yeah.
So do you guys have any plans with respect to those things?
We've been doing a lot of thinking about that, and we're really excited about some of the things that we're going to be working on this year for customers. Great questions.
Thanks.
Hi.
Hi.
I used one of the first versions, I think, a few months ago, that you released with GitHub integration. So it builds Maven builds automatically, I think. The question is, we use 3 different builds. We have the continuous build, we have integration test, and then a larger one. How does that fit with what we currently have? You have those integration pipelines. Are they fixed somehow?
So sorry, the question is...
I want to release to production
Okay.
as soon as the integration tests are completed, but that
Okay.
takes about 20 minutes.
Okay.
I want to release to some kind of demo environment after, I'd say, the continuous fast tests run through. So how are those release pipelines configurable? That's the main question.
Oh, good question. So you want the ability to set up basically multiple pipelines, right?
It might be related to the Jenkins UI, I think, to that question.
Well, it sounds like you want the flexibility to be able to say, okay, I want this kind of release pipeline for this particular type of application, and you want to be able to group those together.
Right.
So yeah, we've definitely been talking about the ways in which we can bring together different projects and different environments to make it easy. You're just seeing the first little steps that we're taking to do that. We're excited to do a whole lot more. But yeah, we want it to be as easy as possible for you to configure and set up different release pipelines so that you can manage them effectively. Okay. And it sounds like set up triggers around certain conditions as to when things will run. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Great, thanks.
Hi, very interesting stuff, but you're hiding a lot of things, the Jenkins part.
Yeah.
And in the demo, you said you fix the bug, you build, you test, you deploy to staging. And then when you show you deploy to production, you say you build again, you build, test, and deploy again. When you go to production, you just want to deploy the same thing as what we did in production. So if we don't have control on this, just wondering how much we will be able to... are you going to say you deploy like this? You build and deploy like Google decide, or can we choose?
No, you want to do binary promotion, right? So you want to make sure that you want to promote the Docker containers, so not only the build artifacts, but everything, the world as it looked when you ran the tests.
And when you say the button, the promote button, you're using the promote plugin, and you have a build job and deployment jobs configured in Jenkins, or?
This is just around the corner. It wasn't in this demo, but it's just around the corner.
Okay, thank you.
Just so I heard you correctly, the key there is that you really want the ability to configure at each stage what exactly happens, right?
Well, at least to know what happens.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Forgive our demo magic a little bit. So, thanks.
Hi, somewhat related to the last question, how do you manage different configuration settings for your staging versus production environments? So you click promote, but you don't want necessarily the same application configuration used as you go up the stack.
So you basically different flags in different, well, they're completely separate projects, right? So you could imagine that you have configuration stored in, for example, a data store that contains your flags that allows you to go in and edit it before the next version. So that's one way you can do it. You might want to have configuration files separately.
So we didn't show any of the administration behind this at all. Okay. I don't know if the pipelines, if there's going to be another pipelines talk, but if you can stay after, we can get you some information. We did a couple of them, I think, at the sandbox, but it'd be good to, I think, probably give you some more insight into that because, yeah, we definitely didn't cover that today.
Yeah. Sure. Thank you.
Sure.
Hi. I was wondering, I've seen in all your demos that they're Maven-based. Do you support Gradle?
Yes, we're working on that. We're working on Gradle integration. We're looking at integration with other build systems.
Okay.
So, yeah, I think the idea is to support what our customers, our developers are using.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks. All right, thanks everyone so much for coming. I know it's late in the day on Thursday. We appreciate it. Thanks for coming to I/O.